So in this lesson, we're going to be solving equations using addition or subtraction. Inverse operations. Inverse operations are two operations that undo each other, such as addition and subtraction. When you perform the same inverse operation on each side of an equation, you obtain an equivalent equation. Equivalent equations have the same solution. We're going to be using these terms throughout the lesson today and as you're beginning to solve addition and subtraction problems. So the property that we're going to talk about, one of the properties we're going to talk about today is the subtraction property of equality. Subtracting the same number from each side of an equation produces an equivalent equation. For example, I have x plus 9 equals negative 3 in your example. If I subtract negative 9 from each side of the equation, I have x plus 9 minus 9. That leaves me x on this side. And if I subtract 9 from this side, negative 3 minus 9 equals negative 12. So x is equal to negative 12. Now you plug that number in for x to see if it is actually the solution. So here's our original equation. So now we'll put in negative 12 plus 9 equals negative 3. Is that a true statement? Is negative 12 plus 9 equal to negative 3?
Yes.
Yes. So we used the subtraction property of equality. What we did to one side of the equation, we did to the other. So when we subtracted 9 from one side of the equation, we subtracted it from the other side. It's still an equation. We did the subtraction property of inequality because we actually subtracted it. When you solve an equation, your goal is to write an equivalent equation that has a variable by itself on one side. This process is called solving for the variable. So your goal in this lesson and in future lessons are to isolate the variable, to get the variable by itself. For example, in that previous example, it was w equals negative 12. Is that correct? Is that what the answer was? So our goal is to isolate the variable. We're trying to solve for the variable. So we're going to use subtraction property of equality in these examples. So if my goal in this one is to isolate the w, what do you think I'm going to do to each side? Subtract, good. Subtract what number from each side? If I want to get the w by itself, what am I going to subtract from each side? So in order to isolate, or to have w by itself, I'm going to take 403 away from this side of the equation. What I do to one side, I have to do to the other. So notice 403 minus 403 is 0. So all I have left on that side of the equation is w. Now I have 177 minus 403. So is my answer going to be a positive 226 or a negative 226, class? Negative. So I have negative 226 is equal to w. Now I'm not quite finished yet. I need to now substitute in my original problem negative 226. Here's my original problem. So I'm going to come down here and check it. 177 is equal to 403 plus negative 226. So you can come to the side, 403 minus 226. $177. So that is your solution. So again, the properties that we use are subtraction property of equality. we subtracted 403 from each side. Why did we subtract 403 from each side? We were trying to isolate the variable. We use the inverse operation, which means we use the opposite. This is a positive 403. So I subtracted 403 from each side to get my solution to the problem. When you solve an equation, your goal is to write an equivalent equation that has a variable by itself on one side. This process is called solving for the variable. That's what we just discussed. So now we're going to do the addition property. Just as you can use the subtraction property of equality to solve an equation involving addition, you can use the addition property of equality to solve an equation involving subtraction. So the addition property of equality is you add the same number to each side of an equation, and it produces an equivalent equation. So what you do to one side of the equation, you need to do to the other. In our example, we're asked to solve 23 is equal to y minus 11. Our goal is to isolate the y, get it by itself. So using the addition property of equality, I'm going to add 11 to this side. What I do to one side of the equation, I have to do to the other. So all I have left here, 11 minus, so negative 11 plus 11, that gives me 0. So all I have left on this side is y. I'm going to add 11 to this side, which makes it 33. So I have 33 is equal to y.
Can you make it 34?
It should be 34, thank you. And I would have probably caught that when I went back to check, because that's what you're supposed to do, is go back and check your work. So I would have done 34 minus 11 would be 23, and there's your solution. Now in your examples, you're also going to be asked to write and solve an equation. You'll be given word problems, and they're going to ask you to write out an equation and then solve it. Horses is my example I've got for you today. One method of weighing a horse is to put it in a trailer of known weight and weigh the horse and trailer together on a truck scale. The weight of the trailer alone is 2,150 pounds. The combined weight of the horse and trailer is 3,375 pounds. What is the weight of the horse? Now, when you're given a problem like this, you need to write and solve an equation. I do not want just the answer. You need to show me that in an equation. So what we do know in this word problem is that the combined weight of the horse and trailer is 3,375 pounds, the total weight, the combined weight. So the weight of the horse plus what equals 3,375? What number should go here? 2150, which is the weight of the trailer. Because the weight of the trailer plus the horse is equal to 3,375 pounds. So which property am I going to use to solve for W, to isolate the W? Well, what am I going to do in this problem to solve for W? What am I going to do to each side?
I'm going to subtract 2,150 from each side.
So all I will have left on the left-hand side of the equation is W. So I will go back and check to see if that will work. What plus 2,150 equals 3,375. So 2,150 plus 1,225. And so my answer is correct. But your answer total is going to be pounds. So word column, you need a word in it. All right, again, I'm not asking for the answer. You need to write and solve a solution. The information that is given, use it in your word problem. Okay, in our example 4, the last example, we have during May, Stephanie deposited $500 into her account and withdrew $120, $60, and $40. Her balance at the end of May was $410. What was her balance at the beginning of May? So you're going to write out a problem and you're going to solve it, just as we did in the previous example. What do you know in this word problem that we can start setting up on that? Yes?
That she added $500.
So she added $500 to something. So they're asking what was the balance at the beginning of the month. So that's going to be X plus $500. Anybody else want to add? What else can go in this equation? Yes? How about plus a negative? Because she withdrew it, so it's going to be a negative 120. Then she also withdrew 60, so it's going to be plus negative 60 plus negative 40. What's going to go on the other side of the equal sign? Now, you can change this problem like such. Now you can simplify the left-hand side. Who can simplify and tell me what the left-hand side should be when I combine my like terms? My like terms are the constants of 500 minus 120 minus 60 minus 40. 500 minus 220. So this right here we combine all of the negative numbers. That's going to equal 410. What will be my next step? Max? Okay, I think I can simplify a little bit more on the left-hand side of the equation. Bianca? Okay, so if you come out to the side. So I simplified, I took 500, subtracted 220, and I had a positive 280. Now using the subtraction property of equality, what can I do to both sides? Yes, Brad?
Subtract 280.
From each side. So if I subtract 280 here, I'm going to subtract 280 here. All I have left on the left-hand side is X. What do I have left on the right-hand side? Skipper. So I have $130. So you will need to go back, plug in $130 for X in your original equation to see if the 130 is correct, to go back and check your work. In recap, we have talked about two different types of properties: subtraction property of equality, addition property of equality, and we also talked about the inverse operation. Inverse means to undo something. What is the inverse operation of subtraction, class? Addition. So tomorrow we're going to be doing inverse operations. What do you think the inverse operation is of multiplication, class?
Division.
Division. So we'll be working on that tomorrow.